It was a sad day in 2009, the last run of the beloved Rocky Mountain News before surrendering. And people said newspapers are dead.
Readership is higher than ever.
No one reads an actual newspaper, they insisted. Everyone is online.
There are some newspapers in recent years that either have come back to life, have gone out of business and come back, or just kind of started up out of the blue.
We hear it all the time. I get my news from Facebook and TikTok. Why should I read a newspaper?
We're a watchdog. We're not an attack dog. We're not out just looking to get anybody. We're not a lap dog. We're not just laying on the lap to just tell you how pretty everything is. But we're a watchdog. We're watching. And when we need to, we bark.
In cities and towns all over the state, bad things have happened when newspapers weren't around.
Corruption can spread. Corporate malfeasance can go up. Pollution can go up. Municipal bond rates go up in areas they've tracked where a news organization has gone out of business.
Luckily for all of us, from the Colorado mountains to the plains, in cities and suburbs, newspapers are coming back, for now anyway. And they're coming back in all sorts of unique and creative ways.
We're in this kind of like a big shakeout period, trying to see what works.
From the earliest days when newspapers used the earliest technologies, people have told their stories on a printed page. These days, putting out a newspaper is not easy, yet publishers are determined. Hard-pressed, though, to keep going day after day after day. Hi, everyone. I'm Gary Shapiro. You know, those of us of a certain age used to love starting the day with a cup of coffee and a newspaper, until the newspaper business hit hard times and many disappeared. Well, breaking news, newspapers are coming back in Colorado, especially in small towns and rural areas. For the next 30 minutes, we're going to talk about why newspapers are so important and show you some that are beating the odds in all sorts of ways. It's that kind of town. Not all that unusual to find someone playing piano on a street corner at the base of Pikes Peak with her Purple Mountain Majesty. Manitou Springs screams Americana. Oh, and that little house by the church, well, it's mostly empty. But if you go in through the living room and up the stairs, you'll find a room where the staff of the Pikes Peak Bulletin is hard at work. All three of them. 4 if you include Chloe, the paper pup, who often sleeps on the job.
She's snoring a little bit, hopefully. I don't know if the mics will pick that up or not.
Aside from Chloe's apparent indifference, these people stepped in to fill a void when the old newspaper, which had been around in various forms since 1918, went out of business. Lynn Edinger Harwell is the publisher.
I've never been involved with running a newspaper before as a publisher or any other than just being a reader and supporter of it.
On the other hand, reporter and editor Rhonda Van Pelt has worked for newspapers most of her adult life. She knows the business. She knows the news.
I love doing this job. Sometimes it's very hard and frustrating and stressful, but this community is just amazing.
The third non-mascot employee
I tried to give a little creativity to it
is Charles Edinger,
and to make it look aesthetically pleasing.
Lynn's brother-in-law and the graphic designer. While the paper is put out on his computer, it's not only put out digitally, but also in paper form weekly. Circulation is now approaching 6,000 copies a week, printed in Denver and distributed between Old Colorado City and Woodland Park.
They still can go to our website, they go to our Facebook page and get links to feature stories, or they can page through the whole paper online. But that paper in your hands, there is just nothing like it.
The comeback of the Bulletin may be a creative model for others. It's a nonprofit, something Edinger Harwell does know about.
Editorial, we can't really comment or support politically, which is fine. We can still report both sides.
The paper is funded by a mix of grants, philanthropy, and subscriptions. It reports news people need to know, news from the police beat, the schools, city government, and sports. Features a lot of news people just want to know, like how's the $4.75 million renovation going at the old Carnegie Library.
A library staffer told me, "Thanks for being on our side." And I said, "Oh no, I'm not on the library side. I'm on the side of humanity and understanding that we have to make it accessible to everyone."
When Rhonda, Lynn, and Chloe walk down the street, they often see news happening. It's that kind of town. And they're proud that now there's a way to let everyone know about it. Americana at its best.
They got the best soup.
Speaking of which, what's more American than a newspaper often run out of the local bakery in Florence, Colorado? Welcome to the home of the Florence Reporter. That's the name of the paper. And Kevin Mamalji actually is the Florence Reporter.
I am the editor, writer, I do the formatting, I do it all.
The paper is located wherever Kevin and his computer are at the time.
And that gives me some more flexibility where I'm not tied to a specific brick and mortar and taking on that initial overhead.
Right now it's a monthly paper, printed, strangely enough, by a company near Chicago. Then copies are mailed back to Florence and delivered, mostly by Kevin.
MakeMyNewspaper.com, and it's an online outfit.
Like many community papers, the Reporter covers the basics: city council, school board, sports. And while Kevin is nonpartisan and fair, he doesn't shy away from controversy, especially political controversy. It comes from his former jobs as a political consultant and community organizer.
It reminds me very much of my early days of like community organizing. I'm just writing about it now.
The Florence Reporter came out of a meeting by residents at a local park. They brainstormed ways to replace the former paper that closed.
Yeah, this is where it all happened, and a newspaper was born.
Kevin was chosen to run the paper mostly because he was willing, had the time, and thinks it's so important.
Like, there's too much at stake. It's too important to kind of just, walk away. And so I'm stuck. I'm stuck, So yeah, but I'm glad. It's important work.
The Florence Reporter is creative, for-profit, and very much appreciated by the community. And since it truly is a one-person operation, it'll be around as long as Kevin is. In the high country of the San Luis Valley, in the little hamlet of Saguache, is a building on Main Street that is jam-packed full of old stuff, including something special that you don't see every day except in museums. It is a working 19th century printing press called a linotype. It's made up of chains, levers, gears, and springs, rattling, grinding, and plugging away. Dean Coombs runs it, pecking away on a keyboard that would make most millennials scratch their heads. His family bought this printing press new in 1921 for $6,000. It was invented in 1886. Metal type, letters if you will, are set by the machine in the order that Dean wants. It's archaic, not very efficient, and the fact that it even works today is somewhat of a miracle.
Sometimes it'll just go along. You won't have any problem. And that's when you wonder what's going on.
Dean thinks this is one of two operating linotypes in the world. The other, he says, is somewhere in France. He keeps it going using spare parts he's picked up through the years from similar presses now retired.
One time I bought 4,200 pounds of parts. They may not even be parts that fit my machine, but oh man, do I have parts,
The two linotypes Dean owns are used to put out the Saguache Crescent, a newspaper launched in 1882 and purchased by his grandparents in 1917. Old family photos document how the paper has been run by 3 generations of the Coombs family. Dean actually started working there when he was 12. And that hippie-looking young man leaning on the building, that was Dean, just a few years back.
People say, well, you must love what you do. Well, I don't hate it. And there's a tremendous emotional attachment to the paper.
The paper is a weekly, and Dean prints about 400 copies. The stories mostly come from local governments and residents around there.
I'm a printer, and that's what I do. And so if you want it in the paper, you got to bring it. And people do.
There are also legal notices, lots and lots of legal notices, county, town, water district, you name it. The newspaper office is crammed with mementos and pictures and old papers, along with file cards for everyone who has subscribed over the years. Which begs the question, what happens to all this when Dean retires? He's 70 now.
I get that question almost endlessly, and I answer that question kind of like parents talking to their children. I say, well, we'll see, you know, and that is the truth. I don't know.
Dean, as you can tell, is not big on change. So until he decides to retire, the Crescent will keep chugging along just like the linotype that it's printed on. On the main street of the tiny southeastern Colorado town of Springfield is a flower shop.
Oh, that was for Tammy yesterday.
Hunter Babbitt runs it with her mom and grandmother, and they keep pretty busy, especially during the local father-daughter dance.
We make little corsage and boutonnieres for the girls to wear on their wrists and their daddies to wear as a boutonniere, you know, up there.
The flower shop has been there for many years, but not nearly as long as the newspaper that's housed in the back of the building. The Springfield Plainsman Herald has been reporting news in Baca County since 1887. It's had a lot of incarnations. The current one began when former resident Kent Brooks bought the paper back in 2019.
One day I didn't have a newspaper, next day I had a newspaper.
Kent grew up in Springfield. Now he lives in Casper, Wyoming, and has an IT job. He's also a historian and author and has written several books about the history of Baca County. He still documents this history with a column in the Plainsman Herald. But he says it's the other human interest stories that readers really appreciate.
Nobody else is doing Grandma's 90th birthday, you know, from here. And so those are the things we try to do that maybe are a little bit unique and have a purely local flavor.
Kent's daughter Lexi runs the paper day to day and covers everything from city council to school sports. It's something she never saw herself doing after graduating from college with an art degree. But she likes it, for now anyway.
I definitely have more appreciation for a print newspaper now that I know all the work it takes into putting one out.
And remember Hunter, who runs the flower shop? Well, she also works for the newspaper. She's the office manager.
Paper's a day late. I am hearing about it. And they want the newspaper. They want it in their hands.
The weekly Plainsman Herald, on paper and online, has a circulation of more than 1,000. For now, it's paying for itself. Kent Brooks isn't sure how long that'll be the case.
You know, again, keeping that hyper-local focus, trying to keep the print piece alive is a little bit challenging.
Yes, although there's been a resurgence, no one knows if newspapers are back for the long run. But even someone as young as Lexi Brooks knows how important they are, especially in rural areas.
Whatever we have to do to keep local news alive, whatever form that takes, however that evolves and grows in the future, we need to keep that alive in some capacity.
For now, the people in Springfield want a newspaper they can hold and read, and sometimes they want flowers. Luckily, they can get both, kind of one-stop shopping. When you drive out of Springfield, Colorado, and head east a couple of hours, you can wind up in Liberal, Kansas. It is the home of the Liberal Leader and Times newspaper. The printing plant there also prints the Springfield Plainsman Herald and 19 other papers from 4 states. Since a printing press in Pueblo recently closed, this is the only one so many small papers can rely on. It is literally an oasis in a news desert. Earl Watts runs the paper in Liberal and the printing press that goes with it.
I don't run in fear from the other means of distribution, but someone has still got to collect information about Liberal, Kansas. Someone has still got to collect information about Hugoton, about Johnson, about Beaver, about Elkhart, Eads. Every one of these places, someone has got to care enough to keep those people informed about what's happening in their town. As long as people want that, we'll be here.
The paper in Liberal covers the news people in that community want and need. It still has classified ads and advertising, but Watts says what really makes it successful is the people who buy it and read it.
The best phone calls we get is an upset customer who says, I didn't get my paper. The best part of that sentence is, I didn't get my paper, because they own it. It's their paper.
Watts thinks newspapers like his are part of the fabric of the community. So important. Papers are a way to make sure government, schools, and people are on the up and up.
When you lose that, we've lost a part of the soul of this country, because the only way a democracy or republic can survive is an informed electorate. The founders said it, Thomas Jefferson said it, and he hated papers.
Tim Reagan Porter, the CEO of the Colorado Press Association, knows a lot of people are skeptical of the media these days, but he says surveys show reading a local paper is a little different.
I might not trust the media. I might even trust Colorado media. But if you ask me about my local newspaper, yeah, I trust them.
It reminds me of something that you often hear people say that they, in polls and surveys, oh, they hate Congress. Oh, but they like their local congressperson. So I think it's kind of something similar to that.
It's worth its weight in gold of what you're getting back for that investment, of people who just love the town like you do, but not enough to lie to you about it, to tell you the truth.
A professor in Kentucky who studies world journalism says, if a town loses its newspaper, it's less of a town. Maybe that's why small town papers are coming back, even if they are hard-pressed. There are newspapers all over Colorado coming back, surviving, thriving. But it hasn't been easy. Some surveys show across the country over the past 2 decades, more than 2,200 weekly papers have closed down, mostly due to costs, including print, delivery, and staffing. In Colorado, 52 newspapers have gone out of business over the last decade, but some of those are coming back.
There are a lot of things going on in newspapers in Colorado. It's one of the more collaborative ecosystems in the country. And so they're collaborating on the journalism they're doing, but they're increasingly working together to help figure out the money problem.
Although some Colorado papers are now printed in Kansas and others by the Denver Post, it can be expensive. Help is on the way. A new printing press is being built in Denver by the National Trust for Local News, which owns the Colorado Community Media. It produces 24 suburban papers around Denver. This press should be operational later this summer and will be an option for other smaller papers that took a hit when the press in Pueblo closed.
So everyone was kind of in this boat of scrambling, costs increasing, having to print out of state in some cases, truck it back in, mail it back in, all of that.
The owner of the press, the National Trust, is a nonprofit that was able to raise nearly $900,000 in grant funding and donations.
But the demand for it remains. There's a lot of people who really like to have that printed product delivered to their doorsteps, mailboxes, all of that. And so we continue to see strong demand. And so our feeling is, as long as the demand is there, we should be able to provide our products in the different ways that people want them.
But what about the future? Will all the creative attempts to keep newspapers going be sustainable? Journalism professor Corey Hutchins says since local papers are so important, he wouldn't be surprised if someone figures out a way to make them government-supported. He doesn't think it would be like the fox guarding the hen house.
There are smart people that can think about ways in which you can put up the guardrails that uphold the First Amendment and that would protect a news organization from government influence. Is there a way to somehow get sustainable funding through more public support?
Yes, newspapers have come a long way from the linotype days, except in Saguache, of course. There's no doubt they've been hard-pressed to survive. And to keep it alive, it'll all come down to you and I and others who want to know the news.
Local news is super important. We're here for you. We're part of your community. We need your support to continue doing the work we do. And we want to, again, deliver it in the ways you want. You want to get a printed newspaper? That's why we're doing a project like this.
It's up to the public. It's up to these communities. Do they want to be informed? Do they want the information that these people are working so hard to give them?
Well, we hope you've enjoyed our look at community newspapers around Colorado. And much thanks to the Colorado Sun for doing some stories that piqued our interest. You know, newspapers are doing much better for sure, but will they even be around in a decade? Hopefully, we'll read about that sometime down the road in a newspaper. Thanks for joining us.